First off, before I start, I am supposed to do some stuff. I'm supposed to say this. Is that spelled correctly? This is the internet, right? So, I'll have to go back to my data quality checking. Okay. Pick the small and back again. So, what I want to talk about today is how we connect our day-to-day actions to bigger contexts or wider contexts. I have an issue with the term scope. A lot of people use the term scope, and they kind of mean stuff written on a card. And sometimes we've got two types of card. We've got a user story, which sometimes doesn't really have anything to do with users, and isn't really much of a story. So I'll give you an example of the difference between something written down in the story. So the cat sat on a mat. That's not much of a story. The cat sat on the dog's mat. Now that's a story, right? So big difference there with the stories. So why is this important? Because as time goes on, more and more of our world becomes commoditized and struggling to find a niche. Look at this startup world, it's insane. Everybody's trying to, what do they call it, disintermediate everybody else. It's like, you know, people are outsourcing their lives and people are trying to replace typical development teams, and we have to adapt. And product teams the same. Until, you know, if capitalism will out, then we end up with huge monstrous companies like we've seen before. And they're still in play. Oracle and SAP, these kind of companies, these huge service providers, just basically push all the creativity and innovation out of our lives, and I think that's a really bad thing. So I'm going to give you some tips, or hopefully, for all the failure that I've experienced during my now 20 years of a career. So there's a disclaimer. This sanity is a really relative thing. So when people say I'm totally sane, be really wary of them. And survival, of course, is never guaranteed. But maybe this will be a bit useful. There are some other disclaimers coming up. The first thing I really want to talk about is this. I've been on plenty of software delivery projects that have been really successful. We've had, you know, continuous delivery, continuous integration. This is back in, you know, 2000 and whatever, 4 or 5. Even before that, good automated testing. It worked. A certain subset of users used it. It was pretty good. But at different levels, they were all kind of washed away. They weren't a success. They weren't seen as a success at different parts of the organization. So the specific users, in this one instance, it was a CRM system. Specific users thought, yeah, I really like this. But what happened? The company decided to go IPO. And they washed all those systems away and they replaced it with a very poorly configured version of Siebel, which is a kind of a CRM thing, if anyone's ever had to use it. Sorry to hear that if you had. But so it started off this whole thing where we got it all right. Like this, we did XP by the book on this one. And it was, you know, user stories, collaboration with the customers who were actually going to use the software, acceptance criteria, good automation, really good bunch of people that were really up for a challenge, and yet it still didn't work. And so now it's going to get nasty. Oh dear. And yeah, if you think that was bad enough, oh dear. Oh dear. Am I recanting? I'm like this old graying XP guy now, you know, and am I recanting? I'm going to stand up here and you can burn me. So architecture. Architecture, quick show of hands. Who here writes code? Who would say I write code? Oh, this is like an... And who writes code for a living? Keep your hand up if you write code for a living. Yeah, because there's a big difference, right? Okay, cool. Right, I kind of got a feel for where you guys have come from, maybe. So you get to this place, you get a gig, right? And you go in, and we get asked to fix all kinds of stuff, and it's cool, you know? And we kind of end up, oh, by the way, this PowerPoint is interactive, watch. You see it? It's great. I get away with a lot with this thing. This point here, we often get brought in here. We have a solution, and you just need to deliver it. Really, really simple, right? So we have the solution. What's the problem? Never mind. It's all these things. It's all these features. We want you to estimate. Good talk in estimation. How long that's going to take, and get on and deliver it. And we've done this. We've done this really quite successfully, quite a number of times. But it hasn't necessarily meant that the entire thing has been successful. So what are we missing? What are we missing from the small, where we're doing this day-to-day stuff, and we're doing high-quality stuff, we really think it's working? Where's all the bits coming off? Now, obviously the first thing that people kind of tackled here was they kind of went down this road to operations, right? And I don't know how many times you've heard DevOps in the past 50 years, but I'm really tired of the term. It's kind of like ops to me, but anyway, like if you did it when you meant it. But we start going down this way, and we say, okay, right, look, we want to cross this line of reality, because software that isn't deployed and somebody else has to deal with it and prop it up and love it and stuff. Well, it's not great, is it? So we started to do all this kind of ops stuff. And you see this DevOps thing is massive, and if you're a recruiter, it seems to be something you stick on your CVs. But it still left a lot to be desired. Architecture. So yeah, operational architecture. But there's another level up, right? Problem. So here's the solution. Here's the feature list. Here's the set of user stories. Here's the couch it whatever way you will. Here's a whole lot of predetermined designs that you're going to realize, right, over that line of reality. So the first thing we started to do was to go, there's something wrong with this line here. There's not enough options. We jump in and we make decisions that have very long-ranging consequences. We adopt a framework, or we choose to structure our systems in a specific way. Architecture, right, that horrible term. And now architecture versus being an architect are two very different things. So I only know one architect, actually, that I've met ever that I trust. And there was this show in the UK called Can't Cook, Won't Cook. If you're into cooking programs in the afternoon, we used to regard architects as can't code, won't code. And the best way to get rid of them was basically to get them a seat on the team and actually try to get them to do some work, and then they run away. Haha. The problem is it didn't increase the quality of our design. So who here uses any of Tom Gilb's kind of approaches? Ever even heard of him? Oh, kind of, no. No, I can't actually see anyone behind this interrogation light, but I'm assuming you're all sitting behind there. But a whole cluster of them. But it's a pretty simple thing. Some of his techniques. There's one brilliant one called impact estimation, and it basically says, look, let's talk about what we're trying to achieve, and we're going to say something where we want this kind of uptime of 99%, and we want something like some kind of latency of maybe 50 milliseconds or something. Well, this would be quite a system, wouldn't it? And we'll have something like time to learn for a given operator, and we want that to be something like 2 days, right? And we can come up with some different designs. So we've got an option A, option B, and we can start to argue about option C. So one is, we should use this off-the-shelf thing. We should use this, build it ourselves. We should do a hybrid approach, and so on and so forth. And we reckon with this one, we're going to get 50% of the way. This one, option B, is going to give us 75% of the way, and option C is going to give us 0% of the way because it's a dog, and so on and so forth, right? So this was our first thing about trying to stop people from forcing their point of view in a code base, because that's what we do. Often, you don't want to talk. You're sick of meetings. This go on forever. People want to blah blah blah, like me now, hearing their own voice. Imagine having to be stuck in a meeting with me, right? I'm Irish and a storyteller. This is really bad news. So this was a more objective way of getting to the truth, at least. What would be the best option given the circumstance? So cool, we started doing this. It's called impact estimation. Look it up if you're interested. It's really great. And what that started to do is we got a line of reality here. But all of a sudden we started to get a line of options here. So rather than one solution coming in, like you've got to use, what's the something du jour? Salesforce. Of course, you've got a customer, you got to stuff it into Salesforce. That's it. QED, job done. A professor of Salesforce. And you don't get a choice. And of course, there's a huge amount of knock-on effects for that. Well, what's the licensing fee? What's the run rate? What's the company actually going to do? How do we integrate with it? Is it tied into a specific integration system? What's their uptime? All these kind of things. It has a whole load of qualities that comes with it. So in this situation, we start to go, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. And we start to do the unwind. Back out, right? The unwind. The problem is when you start to unwind, you get involved in architecture committees. And I'm actually 17 years old. It's just, the grey is just from turning up to architecture committees, where people randomly say cloud, or SaaS, or PaaS, or IaaS, or whatever that is. Dangerous. And make some like really crazy stuff. And the problem is that being somebody who likes to do stuff, whether you're trying to figure out what the users are doing, or whether you're trying to figure out what the technologies, or learn something, or just try to minimize your exposure to JavaScript in your life, or whatever it is you're focused on, the one thing you're not focused on is going to these damned architecture committee type things, which, you know, people make crazy decisions. So you got to embrace it. You got to take it on. You got to turn it around, and you got to get something useful out of it. Now, good old Tom talks about software architecture being, I think he used the quote, pompous bullshit, which is, whoa, that's a bit nasty. But there is something in there if we can quantify it, and if we can use it as a communication tool. And that's why I was going to talk about documentation. There's a link between architecture and documentation, insofar as people don't like this. You know, we value the things on the left versus the things on the right more than, but it's not an either or. Enough documentation to get somebody up and running or understand where they are is very, very helpful. Documentation goes stale. It goes out of date. It might be wrong. But so can code. Code goes stale. You know, just look at the internet. Look at NPM or Maven or something and find all the dead code in there. It can be wrong. We have a whole cottage industry in software testing. So, you know, this has got no difference to it. But you finally end up in a place and you just go, how did I get here? Where did this come from? Why is this so insane? So I dug around and I talked to a Polish friend of mine, and you know what this is. Good. I was really sure if he was just winding me up and telling me this is complete nonsense. But okay, so for those of you who don't speak this, can somebody give a translation? Not my circus, not my monkeys. Fantastic. And so someone else's problem, right? It's just nothing to do with me. And I think this has been a prevalent view very much in software delivery teams. They take on ops, sure. But further upstream, where, you know, users are, we talk about user stories and stuff, but yeah, okay. And you start to think this is insane. I'll give you an example of some insanity situations. One was a client of ours had a pricing routine, ran on a mainframe. It was 57,000 lines long, went from here to here, one entry, one exit. 57,000 lines. Good luck with that. And of course, no tests or anything, right? Because that would be crazy, because it's only pricing. It's only dealing with money and every single transaction for every company. So you think, what could go wrong here? You know, this is great. Sure, we'll touch this. And this started to unfold some stuff in my mind, which is what we're actually looking at. It's not a technology problem. We often get brought in by CTOs, you know, chief technology. I don't know if you have an equivalent. Is that the same structure in Poland? Yeah, CTOs, something like that. Chief technology officers. And it's all about technology. So when people go, you know, the terrible thing at a party or something, and somebody comes up to you and says, oh, hi, what do you do? You're like, I'm in IT. And you don't see them for the rest of the evening. That's it. And they come back later on and says, my dad asked, could you fix his laptop? Seriously, this is my life, eh? I once had somebody steal all my business cards and give them out at parties, and I didn't know. Shocking. Funny. Technology. We focus on the technology. And we see this in terms like full stack developer. Now, full what? Technology stack developer. Is it full information stack developer? No, we don't deal with information. We don't deal with information very well. That's kind of somebody else's job. And that's, I think, where we really have to get back on the horse. This is where a lot of our context is disappearing. I'm going to show you some maps. I'm going to see if I have them. I should have really got these out earlier. But I'll just show you how information maps can be useful. So, what about context? What problem are we trying to solve and how? So here's one from some guys we work with who try to re-engineer hospitals. It's a very noble thing to do because it's horrendous. Horrendous job. Is that ever going to focus? Come on, focus. There's a focusy thing. Come on. You can do it. Ooh, that's even worse. No. 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 Wow. Well, this has been splendid knowing you people. Maybe if I turn the light on. And now if I do it. Oh yes, technology. So that's the technology part of information technology. Now you can see the information underneath it. Now obviously ignore my coffee stain, that's for later. But they were trying to map hospitals. And hospitals are really complex things. I don't know if you've ever been in one. I hope you haven't had to be in one very much. They're full of sick people and generally quite hot. But they were trying to figure out on this particular trust where people were going. So they had people coming in from there. That's not me up there. I'm not sending those people in. That is the general practitioner, GP doctor, not Gus Power. And then home and then in through. And we can see from this really quick map, if you were to do something to improve the flow here, the information quality, because people's files get lost, people get misdiagnosed. One horrible thing is apparently 50% of IV fluids are incorrectly prescribed and administered in NHS Britain, the hospital in Britain. 50% of IV. It's normally the wrong dosage, or if not, completely the wrong thing. So you can see, which is kind of, so this map, information map, I wonder why we don't do a lot of this kind of stuff. And then I talked to somebody about this crazy pricing routine. Oh, now it's got glare. Okay, anyway, never mind. You can see it. The company that we were talking to with this 57,000 lines of stuff, the not my circus, not my monkeys guys, why was it like that? Well, this was the global trend for acquisitions at the time. And here's a map of time, right? So they went on a huge acquisition spree. They acquired 140 companies. They didn't put that system in that state because they were being silly. They put it in because they were making a huge market grab, and it was happening in a lot of different sectors at the time. There was this huge conglomeration of companies. If we don't know this stuff when we're trying to make decisions about systems that we're building, we're going to be without a lot of context. And we're going to look like the people that just say no all the time. Now, I'm not going to show these things because some of them are just nasty. This one. I was going to make a, well, obviously, I just brought this one along because it's beautiful. Look at that. Now look, that's a real, look at that. It's a lovely country. You should go visit it sometime. It's full of people that like football and beer like you do. Looks very nice. Sorry, that was a brief aside. This is the one I actually want to show you. Oh, come on. Just give me a little bit. Come on. This is like, come on, you guys want to be doing interesting stuff, and here I am talking about scope and stuff. This is an information map of a whole business. And down the side, they've got their service center and group processes. And so they got a group and they got company. Something I never really realized was a kind of a thing, you know. Group were always this kind of far away, crazy people that make huge things and say, your budget's 40 million, your budget's 4 million, your budget's £4, your budget's back to 40 million. I always thought that was group. Now it's color coded, as you can see. I can't even get the printer to print out colors, so I'm going to kind of ad lib. Lighter stuff is generally good. Medium darky stuff is kind of crap. And the dark stuff is definitely no-no. Now, can you figure out where they might be having problems? Now, how did we assess this? Did we use huge amounts of software tools to do this and stuff? No. We went and we talked to the people that use those systems in the business. This is an amazing concept. They'll actually talk to you. And especially if you bring them cookies. And over here we could see what they're doing and what the entities are that they're trying to look for. And all of a sudden, guess what? We went to the CFO and we said, I bet you've got a huge problem with shipping. And I bet your repairs are backing up. Are your regional service centers really hurting now? It's like, oh. Suddenly we went up, right? Using information technology, information. If we know about that stuff, we're in with a fighting chance to be heard. Now, back to the cars. That was exciting, wasn't it? I have other maps, but you're probably not interested in them. So we get back here. So our information is bringing us up to problem. And then we've kind of got, on the top of this, we got business objective. And this line here at the top, we're trying to get to, is this line of sanity. So, not my circus, not my monkeys. When you say something like that, it means this just seems insane. Why are we doing this? Why have we acquired this company here? Why do we have to integrate these things? Or why am I doing this? And unfortunately, when this trickles down to delivery teams, we get a lot of just so stories. Why are we doing this? Well, because such and such asked for it. Oh, well, that's a great reason. Because it's next on the board. Because it's the next in Jira. Great, better still. Because we don't know what else to do. Ooh, okay, fair enough. That's pretty right. Or, but we're supposed to prioritize by value. But what I normally see is, no, it doesn't actually fit. In the bigger picture, we're just doing it because somebody says so. And people then say, oh, well, that's somebody else's job. It's not somebody else's job. Yeah. All right. I'm bringing up the A word again. You can use a different A word if you want. In technology, we deal with usually 3 levels. So I took these 3 levels from pattern-oriented software architecture. It's a riveting 6-book hardcover read. If anyone's ever interested, you can have my copy. So the 3 on the end. So idiomatics, bottom level. How would we express this given the tools we have in the type of system we've got? Patterns. We've all read Gang of 4 and all this kind of stuff. We kind of know what a pattern is, right? So it's a way of doing something or solving a common problem. Architecture. So this is more boxes and wires, but architecture really isn't for software. Architecture is much more about the macro behaviors of a system. How well does it perform? How fast is it? How much memory does it use? How much money will it use? That's real architecture. You guys are scaring me. What's going on over here? But the next thing is, we start talking about information. If I can spell. Information, and we start thinking about these 3 levels for information. So we've got the idiomatics of, what's the base information here? Is it clean? How do we store addresses and stuff? Patterns are probably things like, how would I store personal information, PII, and that kind of stuff that I could be worried about. And then architecture-wise is, how do I share my information about customers with group or subsidiaries or partners or stuff, right? But we can keep going. We can talk about product. So again, when I'm talking at the bottom level, I'm talking much more about what gestures would I use on this product to try get the user to do what I want or to be able to understand. Next level up, patterns in the product. We always typically use this type of checkout flow, or we have a navigational paradigm like this. And then architecture, again, we're talking about much more, what's our product set and how does it connect to each other? So when we start doing this, and we start to look at the current state, and we start to go up the ladder, as it were, we end up with something like this. My grandmother used to say this, you're not as green as you are cabbage looking. This is the antithesis to you're not my circus, not my monkeys. This basically means that while it might look a bit stupid, I totally get why you're here. I totally get it. Yeah, you've come with me on this journey, you've mapped it out, you've had a look at the actual information, you've taken eyewitness accounts, and now you're reconciling that with the technology. We're in a much better state to make good decisions. An example. Anyone here try to use the XP metaphor before? Anybody know it? Yeah. Couple, one. I can't see anyone else. So this was always about how would you succinctly describe and really get the essence of what we're trying to do. So we had one system where we discovered that this one system we wrote has 10 downstream systems, and they all deploy one after another like this. And we struggled for trying to work effectively in this environment because we thought, oh, this whole thing is set up incorrectly. And it was set up like that for security reasons, for government reasons, for departmental reasons, for contractual reasons. And we thought, how are we going to be effective? We used the metaphor, we are deploying a Mars rover, right? There's a time lag on getting telemetry data out. We don't know how it's going to be used in the wild, and we're going to give it a whole load of sensors to try figure out what the environment is like. A metaphor is really powerful. And this is where I think we've been let down. Management, and I use this really, really carefully, okay, because management is like architecture. It's another one of these terrible words. Management, I don't mean control. I mean being able to help people do the best they can, requires provision of two things. Constraints. Constraints are really good to know up front. You cannot put your personal information in the cloud because our country doesn't support safe harbor agreement. Or this is going to be localized into languages that are non-UTF-8. And that was good. Oh, but that's it, the end. Cool. Okay, we're back. Constraints. The second one is this context. Even asking questions about context, either you do it yourself or you nominate or elect somebody to do it for you in your teams. It's so critical. So for instance, I was moaning, and I do tend to moan a lot, about the environment that one of our teams was working in. And I said, I hate this building. Why? And I said to this guy, why are we in this building? And he said, you know, this was the headquarters of this client's first major acquisition. Right? That's why we're in this building, because people care about it. So if you say, oh, this building's crap, or don't like it, you're really, really starting to cheese people off. Okay, I'm just done. I was going to say prioritization by, but we're not going to talk about that. So the last thing I'm going to leave you is two things, actually. When we talk about these line of sanity, we come down to, does a business objective make sense? We come down into problems, which is really the line of perspective. Do I know who I'm solving a problem for and why? Then I come down into solutions, which is, do I have the right option? Then I come down into making it real. Does it operate as I expect? Where is your team boundary? Are you just going to take cards? Right? You're going to operate in the small? Or are you going to say, yeah, I know the story behind this and I know why it is so I can make good decisions? Or are you going to go to the next level of problems? I empathize with the users. Cool. Or are you going to go right the way up and say, when the CTO hits you in the corridor, hopefully not like that, you're going to go, yeah, I know why we're doing this, I know where it fits in, and here's what I recommend, because that's how you do it. So the last thing is, curiosity is king. Try to remember, and I keep doing this with myself, trying to remember what it was like in the first 6 weeks you started on whatever it is you're doing right now. Try to remember that. Try to remember all the things that you looked at. It's really hard, beginner's mind, to look out there and say, so why are we physically located here? What happened over time? Where is this information? Who else is using this? Is there anything like this elsewhere in this organization? Has anybody done this before? And then, now did I get this right? Yes. Yes, 1 out of 2.